Welcome back to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into something genuinely fascinating today. We are unpacking a highly poetic, super esoteric, and deeply mystical text that revolves around a spiritual entity known as Hypsiphrone. What we've got here is this profound, ancient-feeling narrative that essentially maps out the ultimate duality of existence. We're talking about that intense tension between the dense, material world we walk through every single day and the pure spiritual world that exists above, or, as we'll see, maybe right inside us. If you've ever thought about the nature of reality versus illusion, or just felt like there's a deeper truth hidden right out of sight, this text hits the nail on the head. So let's break down this metaphorical journey and see exactly how it dissects human consciousness. Okay, let's dive into this. The text immediately grabs you with this incredible cold open quote. I, Hypsiphrone, came forth from the place of my virginity, from the heights where silence gives birth to truth. I mean, just let that imagery sink in for a second, right? This isn't just a casual introduction. It is a statement of absolute, unfiltered spiritual purity. She's establishing her origin in a place completely untouched by all the chaos and noise of our physical world. Up in her realm, truth isn't something you figure out through debate or scientific evidence. It's literally born out of silence. So right off the bat, we know we're dealing with a presence of the highest order, speaking to us from a place that totally defies physical logic. That brings us to Section 1, Descent from the Heights of Silence, in the origin of our spiritual entity. Now, what's really interesting here is the name itself. You've got to ask, if Hypsiphrone exists in a realm of perfect peace and truth, why on earth would she ever leave? Well, she tells us she descended because her gaze fell upon a void, an emptiness that actually longed to be filled. The text explicitly defines the name Hypsiphrone as the high-minded. It calls her the one who sees the void between the lights. Before we follow her down into the physical world, we have to grasp who she really is. She's not a character with a sword and shield, you know? She is the literal personification of elevated consciousness. She sees the gaps, the emptiness, the spaces that we totally miss in our day-to-day lives. To really get a feel for the landscape of this journey, let's look at this stark comparison. On one side, we've got the realm above. Think silence, truth, breath, and heights. It's totally ethereal and eternal. But on the other side, the realm below. This is the place she's descending into, and it's defined by the void, blood, clay, and shadow. It is dense, it is chaotic, and it's heavily physical. Methodically mapping this out shows us the absolute jarring duality at the heart of this philosophy. This isn't just a simple change of scenery. It's a massive transition from divine truth into a heavy, material illusion. And that shift drops us right into Section 2, Encounter at the Fountain of Blood, where we see what happens in the depths. So here's where the ethereal narrative slams into the harsh reality of the physical world. Hypsiphrone has made her descent. She's arrived in this dense, low realm, and bam, she runs into a being named Phaenops. This encounter is a total collision of two completely different realities. The text says Phaenops was paralyzed, just frozen in absolute amazement at her brightness. Picture this, you exist entirely in a realm of shadow, clay, and blood, and suddenly this being of pure, unadulterated light just floats in. Her spiritual presence stood out so dramatically against that low, heavy environment that it completely stunned the locals. It's such a brilliant metaphor for what happens when true spiritual clarity suddenly pierces through our everyday materialistic confusion. Which leads Phaenops to ask the ultimate question. Who are you, who floats above all that is lowly, and why have you come to our fountain of blood? I want to frame this question directly to you, because it perfectly captures the immense tension of this entire text. That fountain of blood represents the visceral, mortal, highly biological reality of the lower world. Phaenops is essentially asking, hey, what is divine truth doing in a place made of meat and mortality? It's a massive, profound question about the whole purpose of the soul being trapped inside a physical body. Hypsiphrone's response kicks off Section 3, The Illusion of Clay and Shadows, completely demystifying the physical world. Her response here, it's the philosophical core of the whole document. She reveals her true purpose for entering this material realm, and it completely flips our understanding of reality upside down. She uses this beautiful, passionate metaphor, saying, I did not come to become part of the clay, but to show that clay is only a shadow of breath. She's telling Phaenops, and by extension, all of us, that this dense physical world, the clay, the stuff we think is so solid and real, it's just a shadow. It's a mere illusion cast by the true reality, which is the spiritual force of breath. We always think of the physical world as base reality, right? And the spiritual world as something wispy and abstract. Well, she's saying it's the exact opposite. The breath is real, the physical clay is just its shadow. And this brilliantly illustrates her next warning about reflection. The text says that whoever seeks her in the depths will lose her in the reflection. Think about looking at the moon's reflection in a dark pool of water. If you dive into the water to try and grab the moon, what happens? You just plunge into the dark and lose the light altogether. The reflection is the illusion of the physical world. If you try to find spiritual truth by chasing physical gratification or looking deep into the literal clay, you're just going to get hopelessly lost. The truth isn't in the reflection, it's the source casting it. Let's lock this concept in and unpack this dense poetry into a really clear esoteric philosophy. In column 1, we have the physical illusion: clay, reflection, echo. These are all secondary phenomena, right? They require something else to exist. You literally can't have clay without the breath that shapes it, a reflection without a source of light, or an echo without an original sound. Now look at column 2, spiritual truth: breath, silence, endless air. These are the primary sustaining forces. This is the ultimate takeaway here. Our entire material existence is merely a secondary echo of a primary spiritual truth. And now we hit the climax in section 4, awakening the inner throne. This is the final call to consciousness. So, having explained the grand illusion of the world, Hypsiphrone gives us the actual instructions on how to break free. How do you actually connect with this inner truth? She translates all that poetry into clear, actionable steps. First, do not look in the depths. Don't look for truth in the heavy, material distractions down here. Second, leave her above. Recognize that truth exists on a higher plane of consciousness. And third, and this is absolutely crucial, find her in your own silence. Remember when she said silence gives birth to truth? She's telling us that the only way to reach her isn't by traveling outward, but by turning entirely inward and shutting up the noise of that physical echo. And as for the tools you need for this journey, 0. The text states it so beautifully: my ascent needs no legs and my flight knows no wings. Why? Because it's not a physical journey at all. It requires absolutely 0 physical means. She's simply the breath within our own breath, calling us home. You don't need to climb a literal mountain or build some complex machine to find enlightenment. You just follow your own breath inward. Let's move to and see how this builds into a very specific 3-step process for the soul's realization. Step 1, touching her shadow. This is making that initial faint connection with higher consciousness. Step 2, knowing the world is an echo. Once you touch that shadow, it hits you. The physical world isn't the primary reality. It's just bouncing off the walls of the infinite. And step 3, ascending to what always was. Actually, scratch that. It's not even ascending to somewhere new. It's a realization that you're just returning to an eternal baseline. So the crucial point is this massive plot twist at the end of the narrative. I never left. It is only your consciousness that fell asleep. This changes everything. Humanity's fall into the fountain of blood in the clay, it wasn't a physical descent. It wasn't a literal banishment. We didn't actually go anywhere. We just closed our eyes. We lapsed into a deep spiritual slumber, dreaming that we're trapped in the clay, when in reality, that high-minded presence has been right here with us the entire time. Which brings us to her final, incredibly powerful command: wake up and stop falling, for in your mind is a throne on which I have sat from the beginning. Man, that gives me chills every time. Wake up and stop falling. That sensation you have of being lost in the chaos of life, that's just the vertigo of a sleeping mind. This endless ascent we've been talking about is simply returning to a throne that was already set up inside your own mind from the very beginning of time. And that brings us to the end of our explainer with a final, provocative question for you to chew on. Are we just asleep on our own inner thrones? Hypsiphrone's journey is so much more than an ancient myth. It's a mirror held right up to our own consciousness. The breath is there, the silence is there, and the truth literally never left. It's entirely up to us to recognize the clay for what it is, stop staring into the reflections, and simply wake up. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Take this thought with you today and see if you can find that silence between the lights.